Hello, everyone. My name is Steven, and welcome to the Unique People Services podcast, where we are highlighting the special people that make Unique People Services special. And today is no different. We are highlighting, or I have the honor, let me say, of sitting down with Mr. Michael Ely, who is the head of Scattersite Housing, as well as mental health services at Unique People Services. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Mr. Ely, how you doing, sir?
Pretty well, pretty well.
Outstanding. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Okay, me too.
Good. All right. So listen. So I just want to ask a couple of questions that I just want to um, ask, because you being the head of mental health services, it is mental health is something that is extremely important, and now you have the conversation, or you're hearing the conversation come up a lot more. And so what I want to ask you first is, so Miss Ely, what's your role at Unique People Services?
Okay, so I provide administrative support for the programs that we establish for housing and mental health. So we have three that are active now, and I meet with the directors and also their staff periodically to make sure we're on track with servicing the people that we should, as far as the number of people and the condition of their apartments, anything that our funder is expecting. We make sure to meet those standards, and recruiting the right people who these particular sets of programming, housing address. So we just make sure that we're reaching out as much to the community, and that we're visiting people in their homes to ensure that they have everything they need. It's the stuff that really matters in terms of us practicing any sort of fairness and justice around resources, particularly housing, and just the rights of people. I mean, everybody should have the right to have a comfortable, safe, clean space to live, regardless of their income. I feel great that we're a part of that aspect of it.
How long have you been in mental health?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say since '91, when
Okay.
when I first came to New York, and I work with strictly mentally ill homeless people. So since about '91, so I guess that's about 31 years ago, 32 years ago.
Wow. Now let me ask you, Miss Ely, what enticed you about mental health? Like, what was kind of the inspiration behind you even getting into that field?
Well, in college, I focused on psychology,
Oh,
and a lot of that came from, well, my mother used to work in a mental health facility with people who had developmental delays as well. And I had an uncle who had mental health issues for just about all of his adult life. So there were some firsthand experiences I had that opened my eyes to, what's going on in general, and made me curious about how this works and how to support people and help in any way I could.
wow. See, no, so that's interesting, because what I find is a lot of the times when people, the direction that people go in, even professionally, and you never really kind of think of it that way, but oftentimes they have a background some way, somehow, right? That particular, like, they had inclinations of
Mhm.
that particular profession, and ultimately they had the aha moment, like, oh, I've been doing this forever. So what I'm saying, let me go ahead and kind of get educated in that area. That is cool. So 30 plus years of experience in mental health. And so you said that you came, where were you before you came to New York?
Well, before I came to New York City, I was an undergrad upstate in
Okay.
Cornell. That's where I worked on my bachelor's. And then before that, I lived in Indiana. My family moved to Florida when I was very small. I lived in Indiana to high school, and I joined the track team and started Cornell in upstate New York. And because I had a lot of friends from New York during holiday breaks, I would visit. I got
Yeah.
more and more familiar with the city, and it was, as they say, the rest is history. I wanted to live in New York.
And you've been ever since. So when you came to New York, at what point in time, in your settling in New York City, did you come across UPS, Unique People Services?
Well, UPS came many years later. I've been here quite a few years, but before that, I did outreach, homeless outreach in the city with another agency, two other agencies. I did support for behavioral health in another agency. And so I gradually came to UPS. And I initially started working with HIV under Ryan White program at UPS. So since then, I moved on to other positions to where I am now. And so it's been a evolution over time in my career.
Got you. Now, so what was the draw? What would I say? What was the draw? What was it that enticed you, if you will, if I can use that word, to come to UPS?
Well, okay, it was funny because I was invited to the annual gala, and when I was working for another agency, and I really liked what was happening at the gala. I bought a few things. I met some of the staff that I eventually worked with. And when a position became available, I applied at UPS and, went from there. I mean, there was just definitely, for me, a vibe that made me feel comfortable. I actually knew a couple people who had already worked in the agency. So, it's definitely a easy transition from that point.
Got it. Okay. It's always helpful to know somebody, right? It always kind of makes the transition a little easier. And also, as you were talking, what has kind of sparked my curiosity, and you mentioned it actually kind of at the top of the show, but you work with homeless, and you were working when you started with prior to, you were working with HIV patients. What was why that particular demographic?
Well, those are some of the neediest folks in our society that unfortunately we don't support as well as we could. And there's always a layer of poverty. So, when I got a chance to, with my background in psychology, to help people deal with those issues around mental health, I jumped at it. I thought that was, great. The stories are always incredible. And a lot of times people don't even believe me when I tell them some of the things that I've witnessed.
Yeah.
And the great part is the transformation, people going from struggling to managing their own life. Because so much of what we do is about helping people improve the quality of their life, and different, lifestyle issues. So when you can see the difference, visually, it's just an amazing feeling that you were part of that and helping someone find themselves and have the life they deserve.
That's good.
So, just empowering people and leading them to the right resources, advocating for them to get what they deserve in terms of, benefits and housing in particular. It's so impactful on so many other things that happens in our life, where we live, how we live, is very, very important. And one of our latest programs, it's a housing first model in which we house people and then we work on their issues. So these are folks, and this is a fairly new arrangement that OMH, the Office of Mental Health, supports. Once you get folks straight off the street, straight out of shelters and the apartments, then you look at what it is they need to stay housed. So it's a challenge because traditionally there was sort of this idea of people getting housing ready and sort of proving that they can be in a place. But this just pushes that aside and, makes the housing the primary essential thing and then go from there. So, I know it's a concept that plenty of people struggle with, because they just assume somebody's not going to make it, and they're going to have issues that, you know, make the housing impossible to stick. But it's been working so far. We've had people come in and establish them, and they seem to be doing well. We just try to help them understand what they need to do to keep it.
Wow, Ms. Neely, that's fascinating, because I never thought, I've never even considered it, right? I never considered, like, I mean, I don't have much information into the field, but I do know from what I've heard, and even, you know, family members and things along those lines, it's always kind of been that it's like you had to qualify first and then be able to work to, so once you qualify, then they'll place you. But it was a process before you could actually get placed. But you're saying you've pretty much flipped that model on its head, and now it's you get them in housing first, and then you deal with their needs. That is interesting. And so what have you found in your experience? How is that type of model assisted or helped people in their development, if you will, or even in them developing the skills that they need in order to stay housed? Like, how have you seen a difference? Because you've seen both sides, right? You've seen both sides of the equation. So what are some of the differences that you've seen using that type of model?
Yeah, well, one of the big things is we often talk about being client-centered in our approach. This is the extreme of that, because it's not about somebody trying to achieve housing. It's very much who they are is someone that we will provide housing for, and then, you know, delve into what they want to do at that point, once they no longer have to worry about, you know, missing curfew for a shelter bed, or finding somewhere else to sleep in the street or on the train, or whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
What's left to focus on after that's been addressed? So it's definitely more client-centered, because we are like straight, direct, face-to-face addressing the person, and you know, where we can go from there, as opposed to making housing seem like something that they earn, because that was very much the way it was fashioned before. So, you know, it took me a while to consider that as realistic, to be honest, because I do come from the old school of when someone had to be sober a certain amount of time, they had to be free of hospitalization a certain amount of time before we even considered them for a housing placement, because we thought they'd have the best chance if they didn't have those active struggles going on. So I remember very well, and
wow.
And you know, it's something I'm glad over time as a system we've reconsidered, because not everyone, just like college is not for everyone, you can't expect something that you create to match every person's need. And you might be part of the problem, because you're creating more barriers for them getting something they need, because you make it seem like they have to work for it. And it's hard enough being unstable and struggling. Not have your basic. That's plenty of work already.
No, absolutely. And it makes, and as you're explaining it though, it makes so much sense, because you can't really go layers deep if they're in survival mode, right? If you're in survival mode, what you're trying to or your behaviors or your time, your energy, mental space is geared towards trying to survive, right? And to your point, trying to survive and make sure that you secure those very basic needs, that you got something to eat, that you have a place to be able to stay and to lay your head. And it has been great talking to you. As we land this plane, I want to get from your perspective as a 30 plus years in this field, what would you say, or let me ask it this way: why is offering mental health services so important?
Well, you know, there's health in general is very important, and mental health whether you are healthy mentally or not can determine what type of life you're living. I don't think anybody that we see on the street who seems to be talking to themselves or just having poor hygiene or whatever. I don't think anybody's choosing to do that. To me, it's always a matter of suffering, and if we can help alleviate some of that suffering, that's the best that we can do as other citizens, as folks who are part of the community. Just lessen the suffering, because if anything, even if someone doesn't have great aspirations of doing something that we think is quote successful, at least they should be able to enjoy the life and have the happiness that they deserve and be able to pursue that happiness. So when we help alleviate some of that suffering, we swing things in that direction. And that's why it's important that everybody is able to access mental health support if they need it, and remove some of those barriers that keep them from having their best life. And when we intervene with our referrals to treatment, with our specifically designed housing for people to, stay on their medications they need to, continue to see their mental health professionals as they need to, then we'll participate in that. We'll helping the joy spread, so to speak. And helping everybody, have a chance at being happy.
I love that.
Yeah, and I just, if we just address it in that basic level, a lot of things would be different. There would be, less crime. There would just be a lot of things that we consider societal ills now that would be lessened. So along with that is allowing people to make choices. So they make better choices if they have more choices, if they have choices that are beneficial. And if they don't believe they have choices, or they don't have access to the resources to make better choices, then it just makes it that much harder to be happy. So we just focus on that, and a lot of things improve.
I love that, man. Mr. Ely, you said alleviate the suffering, and you said people make better choices when they have more choices. That is powerful. And I think that pretty much that sums up the importance of not only what you're doing, but also what UPS is doing as an organization. So, sir, I want to thank you so very much for spending your time with me this afternoon. This was a great conversation. And listen, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. And for the listening audience, Mr. Michael Ely, thank you so much for tuning in to Unique People Services podcast. Until the next episode, we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right.